Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1984B, and today's date is October 1st, 2019, and the title of the episode is, Did You Catch What the Patriots Are Doing? It's perfect. Wait for it. Now, before we get started, let's talk about protecting yourself. The world-famous delivery app DoorDash has announced that its security has been breached. Hackers have unloaded data on 4.9 million of its users. It seems like every other day another powerful app has been compromised. Who's going to be next? One of the best things you can do to help protect yourself online is to sign up for a free 30-day trial of Virtual Shield VPN. This will allow you to create a secure connection to another network over the internet. Virtual Shield can be used to shield your browser activity from prying eyes, whether on a public Wi-Fi connection, foreign country, or just at home. Here, let me show you how easy this is. I'm going to go to virtualshield.com and download the free 30-day trial. I install it, I click connect, and boom, I'm connected. My IP address is now different than before. See? This month, Virtual Shield is offering a Halloween month-long special at 25% off all VPN plans and all premium add-ons, including Protection Plus, Residential Access, and VIP performance plans for as low as a cup of coffee. Sign up for a free 30-day trial to Virtual Shield VPN and see what the hype is about. You have nothing to lose. Click the link below. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, the mainstream media, the deep state, they're projecting everything they feel onto Trump. They're nervous, they're panicking, because they know they have lost the narrative. Did you catch what the Patriots have done? They've created an army of digital soldiers to go up against the mainstream media. Every time the mainstream media reports the fake stories with no sources, the digital army springs into action and researches the facts and counters the mainstream media stories. This is a no-win situation for the mainstream media and the deep state. Facts against anonymous sources? Who do you think is going to win? It's always going to be the facts. This plan is absolutely perfect. I mean, really think about it. When the mainstream media, the deep state, what they used to do is they used to create these stories. They would repeat them over and over and over. They would have no sources, no facts, no nothing, and people would just believe it. Now, with this digital army, there's hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions, I don't even know the real count. There are all these people fact-finding, trying to find the truth. And once the truth is found, they present it, and that mainstream media deep state narrative falls apart. Think about this. When Trump was first elected, they controlled the narrative. And as time went on, and as more and more people joined the movement, what has happened? It's become harder and harder. I mean, look at this whistleblower. This whole thing is being ripped apart in a matter of days. Think about that for a sec. And look what the mainstream media and the government employees are doing. They're panicking. They're tweeting out. And you can tell their panic is not just this little tiny little panic on the side here. Their panic is off the charts. Look at Jim Acosta. Remember he was banned from the White House? And then they let him back in. He tweeted out the following. A GOP congressional aide said there is a sense that things are heading in a bad direction for Trump. We are entering a phase with a lot of unknowns. People are anxious about what else is out there. The aide said about growing feelings among Republican staffers and lawmakers. What do you think he's really saying here? Do you really think he's saying that, hey, the Republicans are scared, there's unknowns, Trump, he's going to be removed? No, what he's really doing is projecting everything onto Trump. What he's really saying is that the mainstream media, the deep state, they're afraid of the unknown. Why are they afraid of the unknown? Why don't they know what's going on? Why are they entering a phase with a lot of unknowns? Think about that. And then here we have Maxine Waters. She tweeted out the following. I'm calling on the GOP to stop Trump's filthy talk of whistleblowers being spies and using mob language, implying they should be killed. Impeachment is not good enough for Trump. He needs to be imprisoned and placed in solitary confinement. But for now, impeachment is the imperative. Think about how scared she is right now. Think about what she's saying, that he needs to be imprisoned and placed in solitary confinement. Think about that. Why are they afraid right now? Because the intelligence organization is no longer in control, and they're not getting the information they were before. Government, corrupt employees, they are going to be exposed once all the information is going, when it all comes out. Maxine Waters is scared that all her corruption, all her dealings, they're going to be exposed. This is why she's so desperate to get Trump out of the picture. She knows that it's coming. She knows that it could be any day now. The sealed indictments, they're sealed for a reason. They have no idea what's going on. They don't know what's happening there. The investigations have no leaks. They're in the dark. This is the great unknown. They don't understand why their propaganda is not working anymore. Digital soldiers have taken over. They are anxious. They don't know what else is coming down the pike. They're afraid of this unknown, of what's going to happen next. So the D's, the deep state, the mainstream media, they want Trump impeached. And they're pushing impeachment, but there are certain individuals that still want to deal with him while they're trying to impeach him. Schumer expects Trump to work with him on gun control. He went out and he said, listen, Trump should continue to work with Congress on gun control measures. First of all, Trump is never going to sign off on anything the D's, the deep state, produces. Why? Because it is not for the people. It doesn't benefit the people. It is for the deep state. It is for their agenda. And it goes against the Second Amendment. So they want him to work with him on gun legislation, but they want to impeach him at the same exact time. Plus, their legislation that they put together, guess what? It doesn't benefit the people. So why would he ever sign this? He wouldn't. So Trump went ahead and he decided to troll the D's with a simple tweet. He said, try to impeach this. And he showed a map of all red. Little blue spots here and there, but most of it is all red. Now, the House went ahead and they decided they were going to subpoena Pompeo. And Pompeo responded to their request. He tweeted out the following. I am concerned with aspects of the committee's request that can be understood only as an attempt to intimidate, bully, and treat improperly the distinguished professionals of the Department of State, including several career FSOs. Let me be clear. I will not tolerate such tactics. I will use all means at my disposal to prevent and expose any attempts to intimidate the dedicated professionals whom I proud to lead and serve alongside at the Department of State. Basically, he's saying, I'm not playing along, and I'm not going in and testifying. Maybe he'll change his mind later, but at this point, he is not doing it. Now, as more and more digital soldiers research the information, they're digging up a lot of information on Schiff, Pelosi, Biden, Clinton, Brennan, etc. And we see that Pelosi is neck deep in Ukraine. She had a legislative aide, Ivana Voronovich. She's from the Ukraine and is connected to the Ukrainian embassy, the Ukrainian military, the Ukrainian government, and the Ukrainian party life. Ivana Voronovich was a party girl in the Ukraine and somehow managed to make her way into a position as a legislative aide to Nancy Pelosi. She started her career working at the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine, in Kiev. She worked for the Kiev bureau chief who's connected to Nancy Pelosi. One time, Roman tweeted out, "Tell Nancy to keep up the good work." And this Ivana person, she is no fan of Trump whatsoever. Actually, she's anti-Trump. And she tweeted out a Trump balloon, and under it says, "Trump baby balloon gets green light from London mayor." And you can see that she is not a fan of Trump whatsoever. She's a legislative aide working for Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi has ties. She has ties. Schiff has ties. And the Bidens have ties. And remember, all these individuals were tied in to the regime change that happened in Ukraine. So let's move on to Schiff. He had a staffer visit Ukraine in August. He lied to Congress and the American people when he created his own phony transcript of the Trump call to Zelensky. We know that was completely fake. It was completely made up. Of course, he wrote that down because he thought this was going to go a very different way. He didn't think that the transcript was going to be there, and that would have worked. Trump wants to know why he is not brought up on charges. Trump tweeted out the following: "Why isn't Congressman Adam Schiff being brought up on charges for fraudulently making up statement and reading it to Congress as if this statement, which was very dishonest and bad for me, was directly made by the President of the United States? This should never be allowed." And he's absolutely right. And we have to remember the Ukraine scandal is much, much larger than Hunter Biden receiving $50,000 or $60,000 or $70,000 a month. This whole thing is much, much larger. Remember, the IMF, they gave Ukraine billions and billions of dollars. And the U.S. gave billions in aid. And guess what? It's gone missing. Where is it? That's the big question. And the controlling shareholder of Burisma is believed to be held by an entity called Privat Group. The Privat Group, or Privat Bank, is a global business group based in Ukraine. This group controls thousands of companies, virtually every industry in Ukraine. The European Union, Georgia, Ghana, Russia, and the United States and other countries, steel, oil, gas, chemical, energy, are sectors of this group's prime influence and expertise. None of the group's capital is publicly traded on any stock exchange. This group is controlled by Ukraine's largest commercial bank, Privat Bank, whose owner was Igor Kolomoisky. And this Privat Bank was later nationalized by Ukraine in December 2016, taking 100% control of the banking entity, a month after the 2016 U.S. election. Now remember, the IMF, they rushed money into Ukraine in April in a response to what IMF Managing Director Christine Lagarde called a major crisis. She went on to hail the government's unprecedented resolve in developing a bold economic program to secure macroeconomic and financial stability. Over the next 5 months, the IMF poured an equivalent of about $4.5 billion into Ukraine, into the National Bank of Ukraine, the country's central bank. Now, what happened to this money, we don't know. It kind of disappeared. And where did it go? Well, we would need a forensic accountant to track all this down. And I just can imagine where this actually went. Now, Biden was out there and he's saying, listen, I haven't talked to my son. I don't know anything about Burisma. I know nothing. But now there's a pic of Biden and those individuals that run Burisma, they're playing golf together. And it looks like he does know the top Ukraine gas company executives because this picture was taken in 2014. It's getting worse and worse for the Bidens. This is all coming back to the Bidens. Remember, in other reports, we said soon the spotlight is going to shift. Well, it's shifting. Now, we know the ICIG we know that they changed the whistleblower complaint form, and the ICIG released a statement explaining why this was done. They found it necessary to change their rules last month to include water cooler talk, rumors, hearsay, and other conversations. Now, why did they do this? Well, Atkinson kind of admits it in his letter. He says the changes to the form were made at the time of the partisan leaker's complaint, or the whistleblower's complaint. Conservative Treehouse notes that the changes were made at the same time Adam Schiff tweeted out the following: Trump is withholding vital military aid to Ukraine, while his personal lawyer seeks help from the Ukraine government to investigate his political opponent. It doesn't take a stable genius to see the magnitude of this conflict, or how destructive it is to our national security. So, again, this is a lie, but it was done at the same exact time. Coincidence? I think not. We know that Schiff was building the narrative because he already had the complaint a month ahead of time. It was already leaked out to him. Nancy Pelosi had it. They had it all. They were planning this from the very beginning. And in this ICIG release, Atkinson claims that the whistleblower had direct knowledge of certain alleged conduct. Well, wait a minute. We know now that the whistleblower does not have first-hand knowledge. How do we know this? Well, when looking at the form, the whistleblower completely lied. They did not have first-hand knowledge, but they went ahead and they checked the box. This is from the ICIG release. The complaint on the form he or she submitted on August 12, 2019, in fact checked two relevant boxes. The first box stated that I have personal and or direct knowledge of events or records involved. And the second box stated that other employees have told me about events or records involved. Well, we know now that this individual does not have first-hand knowledge. Now remember, if Trump didn't release his transcript, they could have used this to say, yes, they have first-hand knowledge. Remember, Trump placed this on a secure server. He tricked them. He trapped them. They took the bait. They thought he would never release this. And as more and more information is released, the credibility of the ICIG, the whistleblower, is fading away. Trump tweeted out the following: the fake whistleblower complaint is not holding up. It is mostly about the call to Ukrainian president, which, in the name of transparency, I immediately released to Congress and the public. The whistleblower knew almost nothing. Its second-hand description of the call is a fraud. And he's absolutely right. The mainstream media, the deep state, they are losing the narrative. The deep state never expected Trump to release his transcript. And they never expected the Ukrainian president to confirm everything that Trump was saying to be absolutely correct, that there was no pressure whatsoever, and that he didn't ask the Ukrainian president to go after Biden. Now, Devin Nunes, he's out there and he's calling for the Inspector General to preserve evidence linked to changed whistleblower rules. He said, other House lawmakers this week issued a preservation order for all evidence and records connected to changes made to the whistleblower form. In a letter addressed to the Inspector of the Intelligence Community General, Michael K. Atkinson, on September 30th, Republican Representative Devin Nunes, Kevin McCarthy, and Jim Jordan asked for the preservation of all evidence linked to secret revisions made to rules submitted to the office. The timing of the removal of the first-hand information requirement raises questions about potential connections to this whistleblower complaint, the letter reads. This timing, along with numerous apparent leaks of classified information about the contents of this complaint, also raise questions about potential criminality in the handling of these matters. Again, what you see happening right now is this trap that the deep state mainstream media fell right into. Had no clue that they were being brought down this path, and then boom, the Patriots sprung the trap on them. And Trump reminds everyone that the call with Zelensky was perfect. He tweeted out the following: "The congratulatory phone call with the Ukrainian president was perfect," all caps, "unless you heard little Adam Schiff fraudulently made up a version of the call. This is just another fake news media, together with their partner, the Democrat Party. Hoax." Yes, the whole thing is a hoax. It was to get Trump and to push the impeachment process. Now, Hillary Clinton is panicking. She's been tweeting out how we need to impeach. Then she's kind of backtracking on the impeachment thing, saying, well, we should really look at this and not come to any conclusions. She realizes what's happening here. She's also calling Trump an illegitimate president, and she's really talking about Obama. He's really the illegitimate president. She's projecting everything that she's feeling, everything that's going on, right onto Trump. And now she's bringing up the secure server that Trump stored the call on. Well, does she really want to go down this path about securing your server, about using a secure server? If I was her, I'd stay away from this. But she's not. She said the following. She said, that's why immediately Trump tried to limit the extension of that phone call to be shared with other people. Why they put it on a highly classified system that is used for the most important secrets like Osama bin Laden raid, which we also know that Osama bin Laden has been dead many, many years before this from kidney failure. That's why they buried him at sea. No one ever saw the body. Nobody saw anything. But let me continue. Remember, Trump released the transcript to the public. He only put it on the server to trap all of the deep state, the mainstream media, to make you think that he would never release it to the public. Hillary Clinton, you took the bait. Right now, you have nothing. Your entire plan with Brennan, Schiff, Pelosi, and the rest completely failed. But Hillary Clinton, she has her own problems. Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch has been working on getting all the information he can on Hillary Clinton's email scandal. Judicial Watch announced that the State Department provided a previously hidden email which shows that top State Department officials used and were aware of Hillary Clinton's email account. On December 24, 2010, Daniel Baer, an Obama State Department Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, writes to Michael Posner, and then Assistant Secretary of State, about Clinton's private email address. Baer, be careful. You just gave the Secretary's personal email address to a bunch of folks. Posner answers, should I say, I don't forward? Did not notice. Baer responds, yeah, I just know that she guards it pretty closely. Mr. Posner had forwarded Clinton's email address, which was contained in an email sent to State Department senior leadership about WikiLeaks. It appears the State Department produced this email in 2016 in redacted form, blacking out Clinton's personal email address and the discussion about Clinton's wanting to keep her email address closely guarded. I wonder why she wanted to keep it very guarded, because it wasn't on a secure server. This was outside of the entire government. Of course she didn't want anyone to see this. Despite a recent court order requiring production of the email, the Department of Justice and State Departments only produced it 10 days ago after Judicial Watch threatened to seek a court order to compel its production. Judicial Watch just caught the State Department and Department of Justice red-handed in another email cover-up. They all knew about the Clinton email account, but covered up the smoking gun email showing this guilty knowledge for years. Tom Fitton is closing in on Clinton. Pushing and pushing and pushing. And look how much they are hiding. Now, the deep state, the mainstream media, has failed on the whistleblower narrative. It is falling apart rapidly. So the deep state mainstream media, they decided to create another fake story, which was debunked very, very quickly. This was coming out of the New York Times, where they were saying that Trump pushed the Australian Prime Minister during a recent phone call to help AG Barr gather information that could potentially discredit Robert Mueller's Russian probe. Well, that turned out to be absolutely false, because there's a letter from the Australian ambassador, Joe Hockey. He wrote to Attorney General William Barr back in May of this year, and it destroys the latest New York Times smear job on Trump. And this letter was dated May 28th, and it was a letter to Bill Barr, and it said, "The Australian government will use its best endeavors to support your efforts in this matter. While Australia's former High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, the Honourable Alexander Downer, is no longer employed by the government, we stand ready to provide you with all relevant information to support your inquiries." That whole New York Times article, boom, shut down. Now, Graham, he came out and he said, you know what? I plan to send letters asking countries to cooperate with the Justice Department's probe into the origins of the counterintelligence probe into the Russian meddling. He said, I'm going to be sending letters to all the different countries. I'm going to be sending it to UK. I'm going to be sending it to Australia. I'm going to be sending it to everyone, because we need to understand how this all started. Now, Lindsey Graham, he was playing a round of golf with Trump last Saturday, and he said the following about Spygate. I know we're going to find out about that in 2 weeks. Boom. It is coming. Now, again, this could be disinformation to make the deep state, the mainstream media, think that this information is coming. Remember, they do this a lot to keep them off guard. But we know it's coming very, very soon. This is why they're pushing impeachment so hard. Let's move on to Flynn, because something very interesting is happening with Flynn. With each new court filing, the public learns more about the government's manipulation of Trump's former National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn. The evidence of prosecutorial misconduct in the Michael Flynn case continues to grow. And with each new court filing by Flynn's new criminal defense attorney, Sidney Powell, the public learns more about the events leading up to Flynn's guilty plea and the government's manipulation of Trump's former National Security Advisor. The latest development came on September 30th when Powell filed a supplement status report summarizing the outcome of the criminal case against Flynn's former Flynn Intel Group partner, Bijan Rafkian. Presiding Judge Emmett Sullivan had requested the parties provide the court a statement concerning the impact of the government's decision not to call Flynn as a witness in that case. That provided Powell an opening to inform Judge Sullivan that the prosecution's case against Rafkian had been tossed. Then Sidney Powell hit the court with this. In our endless document review, we now have a draft of the statement of offense that proves the contrary, showing similar language deleted. This proves extremely significant. To explain, the statement of offense is the document a defendant, Flynn here, signs in pleading guilty to an offense and then later swears to the veracity of it in court. The statement of offense summarizes the facts for the court to show they are sufficient to establish that the defendant has committed the charged offense. The statement of offense filed in the criminal case against Flynn detailed the various false statements Flynn made to the FBI about his conversation with Russian ambassador, and this is the charge that Flynn pled guilty to. Flynn stated that in truth and in fact, however, Flynn then and there knew that the following had occurred. The statement of offense then listed the content of Flynn's actual conversation with the Russian ambassador. In this statement of offense, Flynn also acknowledged that he had filed multiple documents with the Department of Justice pursuant to FARA pertaining to a project performed by him and his company, the Flynn Intel Group, for the principal benefit of the Republic of Turkey. Flynn acknowledged that the FARA filings included material false statements and omissions, but significantly, he did not also attest to know then and there that the statements were false. In other words, Flynn never said in the statement of offense that he had knowingly filed false FARA documents. Yet, Van Grack insisted Flynn had admitted to knowingly filing false FARA statements, and when Flynn refused to testify accordingly, Van Grack switched to treating him as a co-conspirator. But from Powell's latest filing, we now know that similar language, knowingly filed or knowing then or there was deleted from the original statement of offense. Powell then reveals the government told defense counsel in the summer of 2017 that it was going to indict the Farah case then and obtain authorization to target Michael Flynn Jr., who had a newborn and had seized all his electronic devices. Powell wrote, but no indictment came once Flynn Sr. pled guilty. Powell also stressed that the government did not indict Rafkian case until more than a year after the Flynn indictment, just a few days before Mr. Flynn was to be sentenced in this court, when the government was concerned that Mr. Flynn would withdraw his plea. These facts reek of prosecutorial blackmail. Flynn Sr. better plead guilty or the government will charge his son with a Farah violation, even though there was no crime, as the Virginia District Court concluded in the Rafkian case. And to make sure Flynn didn't balk, the prosecutor showed they were serious by indicting Flynn's FIG partner. Then, to further ensure his cooperation, they sought to have him testify under oath that he too committed a Farah offense. But when Flynn refused to testify that he knowingly violated the Farah law, the government attempted to retaliate and further threaten Flynn. By naming him a co-conspirator and putting Flynn Jr. on the witness list and having an FBI agent contact the son, what possible purpose for this was there other than intimidation? Powell is steadily building the case that the charges against Flynn should be tossed for egregious prosecutorial misconduct, and it looks like she is winning. Now, the Department of Justice, they responded today to the Flynn motion for additional evidence. The Brady material requested by Flynn's defense, and the government said, yeah, we're not providing any more evidence or anything. Let's go to sentencing. And hopefully the judge will see through all of this and throw this out also, which I do believe is coming. Now, it looks like North Korea, they are resuming talks with the U.S., and it looks like this is going to happen on October 5th. Strange how Bolton is gone now, and now Trump can speak to North Korea. And it looks like, most likely, they will make all the deals necessary and seal the peace deal. Now, if you ever wondered why Trump has the portrait of Andrew Jackson hanging on his wall, it is because Andrew Jackson got rid of the central bank and he drained the swamp. Jackson stood up to the elites. And when I start going over what Jackson did, just substitute Trump's name. And boy, does it sound similar. Jackson had surrounded himself with thinking men like Martin Van Buren, Francis Preston Blair, Amos Kendall, and few others, and other leading lights of his day, who gave political and policy form to his Jeffersonian instincts. Jackson embraced the Jeffersonian notion that the government needed to get out of people's way. While Jackson was not the political theorist and wordsmith that Jefferson was, he did offer a coherent worldview to the American people, and in many ways, he was a far greater leader. The basic outline of the Jacksonian creed was simple, and it had a lasting impact on the course of the nation. The first plank of Jackson's political philosophy was that entrenched interests in places of power can become dangerous to the liberties of the American people. Jackson believed that civil servants who tended to see their office as their own private property had wiggled their way into comfy positions in Washington, D.C., and had become slothful, incompetent, and in many cases corrupt. He intended to drain the swamp. In his first annual message to Congress, Jackson explained his philosophy. In a country where offices are created solely for the benefit of the people, no one man has any more intrinsic right to official station than another. Offices were not established to give support to particular men at the public expense. Jackson's solution was not to give away handouts, nor to have the government control business, which he would have seen as an economic folly and un-American, but instead to sever the corrupt ties between business and government whenever possible. Jackson gave one of his most eloquent denunciations of crony capitalism in his message to the nation on his veto of the second bank of the United States charter. That is the central bank. That's the second central bank here in the United States. Now, Jackson worried that it had become too powerful and unaccountable. Indeed, many politicians were on the bank's payroll. It is to be regretted that the rich and powerful too often bend the acts of government to their selfish purpose. When the laws undertake to add to these natural and just advantages artificial distinctions, the humble members of society, the farmers, the mechanics, and laborers, who have neither the time nor the means of securing like favors to themselves, have a right to complain of the injustice of their government. Jackson relied even more heavily on the concept of peace through strength. To quote a favorite phrase of Ronald Reagan's, Jackson was willing to threaten to unleash American military force even against superior foes in order to get diplomatic concessions out of other countries that he felt were treating the United States unfairly. The United States was not embroiled in any major war during Jackson's presidency, and the country secured more trade agreements than under any previous administration. Now, the establishment called him incompetent, he didn't know what he was doing, but his supporters cheered him on. Jacksonian populism did not destroy America. It energized it. While Jackson had its contemporary detractors, the country was stronger when he left the presidency than it had been before his ascent to the office. He had achieved enormous success, and perhaps just as important, he staved off worrying trends that endangered the republic. Jackson was an honest, dedicated son of the founding who used his presidency to restore what he saw as the original Republican vision for the country, while acting as the great protector from both internal and external threats to the Union. Now, if you take what Jackson did here, like I said in the beginning of this report, and you replace Jackson's name with Trump, you can understand what is going on and why Trump has Andrew Jackson hanging on his wall. He's on a mission. And he's going to restore the republic, just like Jackson did. And you can see he's battling the Fed. Jackson battled the second central bank. Jackson renegotiated trade deals, threatened other nations with military force to make sure we were on an even playing field, removed those corrupt individuals. This is what we're watching right now. This is the plan. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.